Hey, thank you, Marsha. It's good to be back. Thank you, everyone, for coming back to join us. And those of you who are new and maybe missed the first session, thank you for joining us. We're going to do a quick review of what we talked about this morning, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. And it is going to be pretty quick. And I know that the session will be recorded. So if you wanted to kind of slow down a little bit, you can go back and watch the recorded session. Okay, so this morning we talked about balancing priorities, and these are some of the objectives that we talked about this morning. We talked about why it's important to manage your priorities. We also talked about the obstacles for managing your priorities. What are some of those obstacles that get in the way? We talked about prioritizing your tasks, and we talked about strategies for making the best use of your time and just set a relevant task. Okay, so this morning we talked about some of the benefits of managing your priority in terms of work performance, but essentially we want to achieve a better work-life balance. And in achieving that, we believe that when you have a firm hold and a firm control on managing your priorities, that you have better relationships, that you minimizing your stress, and that you're actually able to get some things done. We discussed what obstacles are in the way when we try to really do our best to really try to get those priorities done. But sometimes outcomes expected, lack of expected outcomes can get in the way. Not really determining and not really looking at what's really important, what we should be working on. We procrastinate. Sometimes we don't even respond to change, or we're trying to do too much on our own, or unrealistic expectations and communication. All these things can block our ability to really manage our priorities. So Ms. Ruth followed up and she led us through a discussion on what things we should be doing first. Like what can wait for a while, what should we be doing first, and what really needs to be done. If that's something that's really crucial to your workday. And so we went on and we talked about goal setting and the benefits of setting not just goals, but we're all familiar with the term SMART goals. It's got to be something that's measurable. It's got to be something that's actionable. It's got to be timely, worth your time. So we talked about how we would go about setting those goals. Ms. Ruth gave us an example of one of her projects, a major project that she has every year, and that's these schedule booklets throughout the year, and how important it is to make certain that you allocate enough time to the project that you have before you, regardless of what it is, that you time it out so that you can allocate it, so that you can properly, um, move forward. Okay. So then we moved into really taking a look at what's important. And we talked about it in terms of quadrants. And we said, quadrant one was like if it's high urgency or high importance, that would be something like tax deadline. It's important and it's urgent. Email or your car engine goes up. That's important. That's urgent. And that's kind of like almost operating in the crisis mode when you're in quadrant one. Okay, so quadrant two would be like high importance but low urgency. And then that's where Stephen Covey says we should be spending most of our time on planning, on family time. We should be doing car maintenance so that we don't get, so that we don't have to move to quadrant one and have to deal with an engine that has gone up. So car maintenance would be part of you'd be in quadrant two, where you can actually plan for that task to go. Quadrant three, and this is what I call the Mr. Nice Guy syndrome. It's low importance, but it's high urgency. You're taking phone calls, you're taking texts, you're taking visits from coworkers. You're doing something for somebody else. It's low importance to you, but it's high urgency because they want you to do it now. Okay. And this is where a lot of us spend most of our time, which is why we can't get anything done, because we're spending so much time in quadrant 3 that we really need to be spending more time in quadrant 2 where we're planning, so that we don't move to quadrant 1 where we are acting in crisis mode, okay? And quadrant 4 is basically low importance and low urgency. And that's, you know, you can be just internet surfing or watching TV. We need those times, but that's not where we should be spending our time at work. When you get home, that's great. You know, it's a great opportunity to decompress. So that's kind of where we were going in terms of the conversation of how you determine what's important and where those tasks are. Okay, so for this afternoon, we want to talk a little bit about keeping yourself organized. Okay, keeping yourself organized. How many unorganized people do we have in the? It's okay. Go ahead. I see you. Raise your hand. You can. It's okay. Okay. So we're going to talk about keeping yourself organized. We're going to talk about maintaining a realistic schedule, how we can build a realistic schedule, and then we're going to talk about managing conflicting expectations. You know, it happens. What happens when you're working on a project and then one of your colleagues from down the hall, which happens a lot, they interrupt you, and now, but they need something that you have to help them with their important project, but you are in a crisis yourself, or you are at a time where you've got to get your work done as well. What do you do when you have those conflicting expectations? And then just strategies for using your time more effectively. Okay. Okay, so the first step really to getting yourself organized is just realizing that you're not organized, or that you could improve upon your organization skills. So I'd like for you to take out a sheet of paper, if you will, and answer these few short questions. And you'll see the rating at the bottom, and I'll give you a few seconds to answer that, and then we're going to come and talk about it. Okay. You know, I was looking to see if I can see if the head's down, but I see that many of us, like a lot of institutions across the state and a lot of people that use Zoom, we love to show our names, our images, not so much. So I just want to let you know that, you know, I love seeing all your beautiful names. So anybody want to share kind of where they fall? Let me go back. Let me kind of go through what your scores will tell you about yourself first, okay? So if you scored a 4 to 6, okay, it's really just an indication. Now, of course, none of this is written in stone, so I don't want anybody saying that's not me, you know, you must be crazy. It's just an indication of what it says, what it might reflect about your organization skills. So 4 to 6, lack of organization may be making it much harder for you to achieve your goals. So if you fall in this category, you're what I call lacking Lucy. You're the type, you drive your accountant crazy because you come into his office with a bag of receipts and you expect them to sort it out for you, or to be right there beside you while you get it sorted out. You're just so totally disorganized. If somebody came and just tried to organize you, I think you would just have a fit. Okay. The next one is if you score between 7 and 9, You're somebody that I call find it Frank. You know, you would find it easier to get things done if you organize your workspace so you could find things more easily. Okay, so it could be a bit frustrating for you, but you can still get it done. You know, you can still, but you're fussing the whole time. You know, where did I put that report? Where is it? I know it's somewhere around here. I just had it yesterday. I just had it in my hand. You know, you're not a total. There's hope for you. There's hope for you. Let's put it that way. Okay. So the next one is uh, 10 to 13. So lack of organization seldom interferes with your ability to get things done. You are the person that I would classify as you walk into your office, your desk is a mess, everything's a mess, but you know exactly where everything is. And nobody better never, ever touch anything, because if they try to organize you, you will be lost forever. You won't be able to find it. It's like, don't mess with my mess. So, and if you're that person, if that works for you, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, and then finally, 14 to 16, congratulations. You're generally well organized. You're so organized, you probably have color codes. You've color coded everything. You write neat. You have that nice handwriting that everybody just admires. And they don't understand how you can just be so organized. They love when they give you a task because they know that you're the one that they can call and you will have everything that they need. Oh, just ask Olivia, organized Olivia. She will get everything for you. She has it at her fingertips. So, given that, where do you fall? Anybody want to share where they fall in that quadrant of organization? Okay, I see some things going on in the chat. 13. Okay. Thank you, Aaron. Mel,
I
14.
think Ruth was trying to say something, but I think she was muted.
Oh, Ruth is muted. She's still muted.
I was trying to read the chat off for you, but you got it. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay. Laura, 15. I could believe that about Laura. I know Laura. Laura works here at our institution in institutional effectiveness. And every time I ask for them, it's a split second. You can tell that they are very organized. Christy, thank you for your honesty. And Lee says, you're 13. Okay. Charity, I feel like I should be in the last group, but I only scored myself 13. Maybe I scored myself too low. Well, you're the only one that's seeing this. So to thine own self be true. But if you want to share with us, that is just absolutely, absolutely fine. Let's see. Okay. So I'm just looking at some of these scores here. Um, Jamie, Jamie Beck scored herself an 8. Great. 10, Tracy. Okay, great. So do you feel like this pretty much mirrored kind of where you are in terms of your organizational skills? Anybody like to, we all like to improve our organization skills a bit, wouldn't you say? Okay. Okay, great. So let's move on, but keep that in mind as we give you some tips and tools for getting things organized for you, okay? So, okay, so in order to really, what we're talking about now, if we're talking about organization is, and if you don't feel like you're as organized as you want to be, I think what we're essentially talking about is forming new habits, okay? Getting rid of old habits and forming new habits. There are plenty of studies that says how long it takes to drop an old habit, and they vary from one thing to another. But I can tell you that if you're not consistent on a regular basis, at least for 2 weeks, and some studies would show anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months, that to really hardwire those habits You have to get into the habit of doing it pretty much every day on a regular basis. So what we're really trying to do is to get you to think about how you used to do it, reflect on how you used to do it, and think about how you want to do it. Okay. So earlier, I kind of teased you a little bit, and I said, there's one thing that you can do today that will put you on the right track. And I truly believe it. And it's not just with organization, it's with anything. When you want to change a habit, whether it's an eating habit, whether it's I'm going to start a new hobby habit, or whatever that item is. And when I tell you this, not only is it going to blow your mind, but you're going to say, I knew that, but then what you do about it. And basically, what that is a made up mind. You've got to have a made up mind that you're going to do it, because we can sit here and talk organization skills all day long, all week long. If you don't have your mind made up that you're going to do it, it is not going to get done. It is absolutely not going to get done. And when I say made up mind, let's unpack that a little bit. I'm not just talking about, okay, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try something new. I mean, you have to be intentional about it, okay? So in order to have a made up mind about something, you have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself so that you're preparing yourself for this new habit. So, and by that, I mean, you have to get enough sleep. How many of us are working off of a limited amount of sleep, and then we're wondering why we aren't as productive? Because you have to make certain that you're getting enough sleep. You have to make certain that you're taking enough breaks during the day. Some of us will be in our office for the majority of the day, and we'll look at our clocks and we realize that we haven't even gotten up just to stretch our legs. You have to have a made up mind. And in having a made up mind, you have to be intentional about making up your mind and doing those things that will help you get to that place of being ready to start something new. And then we have to think about how much, I call it task shifting. Some people call it multitasking. I don't think multitasking works, because we're all human and we can still only do one thing at a time. So if we're working on something else, we're shifting. If I'm working on a report or planning or programming, and I get a phone call or an email, and my notifications are on, and I see that email that comes, and I think to myself, it's only going to take me a few minutes to answer this email. You know, we have officially shifted from what we were doing, and we've moved on to something else. And when you make that shift, and you want to be able to, you think you're doing the right thing, and for the most part, you probably are. But understand what happens when you do that. So when you do that and you're answering that email, and then that email is a request for maybe a form or a report that you did that somebody wants access to, and now you're conversating and you're communicating with this person. Before you know it, some time has gone by, and so you've completed that task. Now you have to reset your mind as to where you are in this next, in the task that you were working on. So in some cases, particularly if you're working with numbers, you have to start all over, because you don't always remember exactly where you were, whether it's working on budgets, whether you're doing your taxes. Have you ever done your taxes and you put it aside and you say, okay, I'll finish it up the next day or in a couple of hours or a couple of minutes, and you come back to it and you don't really remember how that calculated, so you have to go back to the beginning? That's task shifting. And that can be a time waster too if you're not careful, okay? So having a made up mind when you walk into the office is also about, making sure that you're focused when you walk into the office. Because when something happens outside of the workplace, whether it's at home or the store, and you're still thinking about it, and you're still thinking about maybe something that happened with your children at their school, with your maybe your elderly parents or your spouse or something at work, you're not all the way present. Okay? So you have to give yourself permission to be all the way present. So when you go to work, you want to make sure that you're showing up as your best self. And in order to show up as your best self, you have to have a made up mind. You have to walk in, when you walk into the office, how you walk into the office is actually an intentional choice to have a made up mind that today is going to be a good day. That today is going to be a day when I organize some things in such a way that I can get some things done. So having that made up mind is first and foremost, I think, one of the most important things, most important rewards you can give to yourself when you get to the workplace. So to organize yourself, here's some things that you can do to organize yourself, okay? Keep what you need close at hand. I know we say we're going to do this, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes, the copier might be on the other side of the room. Sometimes you have control over it. Sometimes you don't. But if there are files that you're working on and you know that you're going to be utilizing those files, try to keep them close so you don't have to constantly keep going back and now have to refile them and reorganize them. Name files so they're easy to retrieve. I think most of us do a pretty good job of this, but I have in the past looked for files and then when I found it, wondered why I even named it that particular file name. Okay, and then sort emails into folders that with names that make sense, that make them easy to locate and indicate the priority and importance. And that's important too if you're working in an area or in an office where other people have to access your files. They have to be able to get to them in a way that's easy for them as well. So just make sure that we're doing that. And then handle emails and documents only once. How many times have we picked up a piece of paper only to put it back down? Or we've picked up a report only to put it back down? When you handle a piece of paper only once, it's one and done. It's one and done. So if you get into that habit of, if you're not going to do anything with it, don't pick it up unless you're sorting it into a filing folder or something else. Touch it only one time and you won't have to touch it again. Okay, take action on that one sheet of paper at that time, or that one report or whatever it is, just one time, and you'll find yourself clearing your desk out much quicker. If you have a cluttered desk and you just don't know where to start and you have to start somewhere, start by picking up one sheet of paper and doing something with it. You would be amazed how quickly you can get your desk back in order. Go through your papers and electronic files on a regular basis. And archive was no longer current. Now, I am guilty of this. I have some electronic files that's been in my files for a very, very long time. And it's probably past the time that we need to keep them. Take some time to go through those electronic files that you don't need anymore, archive them, put them somewhere so they're not cluttering up your electronic file storage. And then schedule a few minutes every day or two to maintain your organizational system. It doesn't take, if you're maintaining the system, it only takes you a few minutes to kind of keep it cleaned up. I know it's easier said than done. It is easier said than done. But if you put some time on your to-do list to do it, it'll get done, right? No, because your to-do list doesn't work. I'm here to tell you, your to-do list doesn't work. You're putting all of this stuff on there and, review electronic files. it's still on your list. All you did was transfer it from one day to the next. Your to-do list doesn't work unless you follow these short and quick steps and guidelines, okay? So a lot of times, and I'll just kind of go over this part kind of quickly, because there's one thing that you can do to make your to-do list superior to anybody else's, and that's going to get your stuff done. But before I reveal that one thing, I'm gonna tell you why your to-do list doesn't work. First of all, sometimes we can do a to-do list and it's all nice, and then you feel good because you got it out of your brain, right? You put it on paper. But it's not the paper's responsibility to get it done. It's your responsibility. Just because you wrote it down, it's not going to happen automatically. But sometimes we can get so overwhelmed by just looking at everything that has to be done. We could just be so overwhelmed, like, why did I do that to myself? Is this real? I really have all this to go, all this to do. So, and then sometimes, you know, if you're really good at to-do lists, of course you'll prioritize those things. But if you haven't prioritized anything and you're just writing down a list, it's not going to work. It's not going to, it might work for you. It might work for anybody who scored in that mid-range where, you know, don't mess with my mess. But for the person who really wants to organize themselves, if you're not prioritizing your to-do list, and we're going to talk more about to-do lists later, but I'm bringing this up now because I want to share with you the one thing that will make your to-do list superior to anybody else's to-do list, okay? So if you're continuously adding things to your to-do list, you know, when somebody else give you a task, okay, now let me add this to it's on my list, it's all good, until you start looking at it and realize that, oh, I really have to do something with this now. Okay, and so then, even though they say leave your home, you know, check your home stuff at the door, it's kind of hard, right? Because, you know, at work, you're thinking about all the things that you have to do when you get off work. When you're off work, you're thinking about all the things that you have to do when you go to work, right? So, you know, it gets to be confusing because you've created a list that has some work items on it and has some personal items on it, unless you want to maintain two lists. In that way, it can get pretty confusing, okay? So, but like I said, we're going to go over to-do lists in a little bit more detail, but the way that you, listen up, the way that you can make your to-do list shine and superior to everybody else that has a to-do list. You want to know? You want to know? Here we go. Schedule everything. Your to-do list doesn't work because it's just a list. You haven't put it on your schedule. You haven't given it a time block to even get those extra files sorted. You have to schedule everything that's on your to-do list. You have to get it scheduled. If you have from 7 to 5 and you have a to-do list that you're going to work on from 7 to 5, those items on your to-do list should be scheduled. If it's reading emails, then it needs to be on the to-do list. If it's making phone calls, if it says call Miss Ruth, then I need to write on my schedule from somewhere between 7 to 7:30, I'm going to call Miss Ruth or whatever other calls I have to make during that time. So that's the secret to taking your to-do list up a notch, is schedule everything that's on your to-do list. Okay, so how do you make your schedule useful? Put it in writing, okay? So not just, you know, thinking about it, you know, just put everything in writing. Include everything you need to do. Everything, and that's the key. Put everything on your to-do list, even if it's just emails or just meeting with people, or, you know, I want to put some time aside to create an app or something. You know, put that on your to-do list as well. Schedule activities that require concentration and energy for times of days that you're most alert and focused. So if you know that you're focused more in the morning and you have an important task or an important project to work on that's going to require your attention, don't schedule it for the afternoon where you know that you're more low energy, and vice versa. Sometimes it takes some of us, that coffee takes a while to kick in. It could be afternoon. So if you know that you're one of those that do their best work in the afternoon, schedule those critical tasks for the afternoon where you know you can get most of that work done. So those important tasks that we talked about, that's in quadrant 2, those important tasks that really lead to long-term planning, you need to schedule it during a time when you're most alert. So if there's ever a time where you're going to do something that maybe is kind of low urgency and maybe it doesn't need, make it during the morning where you're low energy. But in terms of trying to really get some things done, schedule it during that time to the extent that you can. Schedule it during that time where you are at your peak performance, and that will go a very long way. And then include time for routine tasks. Like we talked about, if it's filing, if you do your own filing, if you tidy up, leave some time for wrap up, put it on your schedule. Put it on your schedule. Don't just write it down on, cling off the credenza. Put it on your schedule, and then it'll get done. Then you don't have to worry about it's transferring over to the next day. And you come in the next day and you realize it's still on my to-do list. It's still on your to-do list because you haven't scheduled it. Schedule it. Allow contingency time for the unexpected, because that happens all the time. It happens all the time. Maybe not so much now because we're all living the life of avatars, but when we're on campus and we're right there, somebody was, and you never shoot them away because you're too nice. You're Mr. Nice Guy or Miss Nice Lady. You're living in quadrant 3. You're doing things of low importance, of high urgency. You're doing it for other people. So you're Mr. Nice Person. So now that you know you're Mr. Nice Person, you need to schedule some Mr. Nice Person time so it doesn't impede upon the other things that you're trying to get done. Include time for thinking, planning, and reflecting. How many of us really do that? I mean, really take the time to think and plan and reflect. Marsha's probably the only person that does that. Because I'm telling you, not only is it productive, it's therapeutic. It really puts things in its proper perspective. It really gives you time to really filter out some of the distractions that might happen during your day and focus and narrow in on, this is what I'm going to be focused on today. So you really need to take some time, make some time, schedule some time for planning, for reflecting, and just for thinking about it. It's not going to just happen. You have to schedule it. You have to schedule time. Take control of your time and schedule it. Schedule it. Be realistic. You cannot increase the number of hours in the day. We wish we could, but we can't. We can't. Review and revise regularly, and whenever things change, don't feel like you have written a document that's so carved in stone that you don't have the flexibility to change it. It's not on the schedule. It's not on the schedule. I recall a few years ago when I had some family members come in, and we had a schedule built out for them, a whole weekend schedule. And some of my family members wanted to do something else. And I would just say to them, it's not on the schedule. I was not being flexible because it wasn't on the schedule. But to my credit, we got everything done that was on the schedule. We got everything done. So just be mindful that, sometimes things do change and we do have to adjust ourselves accordingly. Okay, so now what I'd like for you to do is just take a few seconds, just a few seconds. Think about your to-do list, because I know you have one. Everybody does. Everybody does. Think about 2 to 3 things on your to-do list. Write those activities down and write how much, not just how much time, but think about tomorrow, if you will, when you come into the office. 3 activities. I want you to schedule them out. Just schedule them out. Write them down and schedule them out. 3 activities for tomorrow that you need to work on, that you need to, that's on your to-do list. And if it's not on your to-do list, it should be on your to-do list, that you can actually write out and commit to. Okay, I'm gonna go to the chat room for a minute because you all are you're entertaining. You're an entertaining group, I must say. Um, Joanne says that this news feature should be disabled for me. And that was, I guess, in response to somebody else's comment about, they put everything on their calendar, but then they snooze. Come on, yeah. That's hysterical. That was Mel. I do schedule most everything on my list, but I find myself snoozing the reminder when it pops up. How's that working out for you, Mel? How is that working out for you? So, Marsha, yes, yes, so true. You have to know when you're at your best. Yes, okay, that's in relationship to making certain that you are doing those important tasks when you are at your peak performance. I don't do heavy lifting first thing in the morning, and that's good to know about yourself, because I do my heavy lifting first thing in the morning. In the afternoon, it's just all downhill for me. So that's good to be aware of how you work during the day. And then it's also good to share that with people. So I know that if I want to catch Marsha at her peak, or when I really need to get something done, or maybe I just really need her her expertise or her guidance, I'm going to catch her in the afternoon, because I know the coffee has kicked in. The coffee has kicked in and her brain is in high gear. So, and that's good to know. It's also good to know too, when your directors or when your supervisors, when is their peak performance? That really helps. Mel, I do that often. Okay, I do every Monday morning. Great, Catherine. I need to do more. It's hard, but it works. And you're right. It's like you have to decide. It's hard, but it works. And that's where that made up mind comes in. You have to make up your mind and stick to it. It's the easy stuff is easy. The hard work takes time. So it's like, are we willing to put the hard work in to really get to where we want to be? And I think that we can do that. I mean, there's always room for improvement, regardless of how organized you are. Some people are so organized that the color codes is an extra stimulation for me. It kind of drives me crazy, but it keeps them on task, and that's what matters. What works for you? Okay, Joanne, I only reflect when something goes wrong, and then I have to make adjustments. I should reflect more so I can learn what I do that works and make that a habit. That is a great point, Joanne. That is a great point, and that's how we miss these little great nuggets, because we don't take that time to reflect. And we know in higher education, learning comes from that reflection piece. And that's a key piece for us. Already on calendar, great. If I lose my phone, I'm in big trouble. Lee, that we got to back things up. We got to back things up, Lee. But I understand exactly what you're saying. I admit sometimes I just dismiss, not even snooze. Okay, the more we snooze, okay, did I go? I moved up some. Okay. I don't plan anything before 10 a.m. afternoon when everyone else is drained. I'm on fire and creative and finalize things. I just had a visual of Marsha being on fire in the afternoon and everybody else is kind of snoozing. So I can imagine what that's like in the office. But so I appreciate your comments. And as you are, kind of listening to us, go back and read through some of those comments. It's very interesting information. I think we learn a lot from sharing with each other how we react to certain stimuli in the workplace. So I'm going to wrap my session up and I'm going to turn it over to Miss Ruth, and she's going to start a discussion on managing conflicting expectations with the time that we have left. Okay, Miss Ruth.
Thank you, Miss Juanita. As we spoke earlier, we were talking about the importance of setting goals and our ability to be able to start off with those tasks in an orderly fashion with a plan ahead of us. So as we go through the day, as we go through our week, we know that we're going to run into issues where we're going to have conflicting situations that are going to conflict with whatever schedule we have. And in our world, that happens a lot. And right now with us at home doing COVID-19, a lot of people work remotely. I'm quite sure that we ran into that a lot because people were having to homeschool their children. So your days had to really adjust and be different. So in that respect, planning definitely it's critical, and it definitely was important. And we're kind of getting a little bit better now because school is out. But I do know a lot of parents where it was challenging keeping up with their work day as well as keeping up with the schooling with their kids. So they did have to really manage those conflicting expectations. And we talked a little bit about this morning, how we do have options or opportunities when this does happen, and it can be difficult. And I did ask this morning, what would you share with someone when they have a conflicting task, or the fact that someone comes to you with a task that they needed and it conflicts with something that's on your to-do list. So just asking, how do you handle that? What would you tell that person if I'm like, I don't know what to do, and I really need to find out how to let my boss or the other person that's on the project know that my schedule is full. Now, Melanie's probably thinking about me because at one point I was working on a project and I had to really almost interrupt her days a lot. She's probably, Ruth, that was me. But if you have that type of situation, and you had to help a new person who's in your department understand how to get that assistance and how to share the fact that they have a conflict in the expectation. Can one person or a couple people put in the chat maybe what you would do if in that situation? What would you share with them, especially if it's a new person that's coming onto the team? You yourself have been on the team a while, so you know everyone's habits a little bit better and their expectations. So what would you share with that person that they could be able to use and grow with as they begin to work in their new position? Now, as you're thinking about that, I'll continue to talk. One of the things we did not talk about today, I did share that when your supervisor gives you something and those priorities are competing, that you need to have that conversation. But anytime that you're having a conversation with anyone that where they're giving you a task and your priorities are competing, is that we need to make sure that we show respect. and be respectful of the other person's priorities, because we know we got ours and you're interrupting and I can't do this. I have to finish this first. But we have to show respect. We have to be mindful, and we have to keep in mind that that other person's priorities are just as important and crucial as ours. And so you have to put on that listening ear and be able to have a conversation. Now, it can't be a long conversation, because now what are we doing? Taking off the time where we could be doing something. But that conversation, or some part of it, has to be had when you're sharing what the priorities are, so that you can determine how to best handle the situation. So, which comes with the fact that you need to be able to learn to negotiate with that other person. You might have to negotiate what to do first. And in doing so, you're going to have to look at both situations. So when you're trying to handle conflicting situations, you want to, if it's a supervisor, you want to talk to them. You want to explain your priorities, why they matter. As that other person, whether it's your supervisor or someone else, is working with you, you want to make sure you're respectful of their priorities as well. So when you're managing those conflicting expectations, you need to explain the priorities and why they matter, and make sure you show respect. That's all well and good. And remember, body language talks a lot. So when you're working through it, make sure your body language is not saying or screaming something else while you're trying to really work through this situation that you have at hand. And negotiate and try to reach a compromise so that it's a win-win for both of you. Sometimes that's hard to do. Sometimes it's impossible based on the situation, but if it's something that has to be done, we have to come with a solution or someplace to negotiate our way through. So those are 3 tips that you would like to keep intact. I see Marcia says I have trouble with my body language. Her face gives her away. And some people are like that. I have a friend where I told her, your face writes a story. And so it is important that we recognize that you need to be able to show respect while you're working through it. So those are 3 tips that you can use when you're wanting to or needing to manage conflicting expectations with someone else in your department or on a project. And then we have those moments when we wish that there was a lot more time in the day. How many of you have those moments when it's like, oh man, I still have more to do and it's only 10 minutes left. So sometimes we want to have more time in a day. But we know that there's only a certain amount of hours in the day, and there's not going to be any added to our day. Sometimes we want that and sometimes we don't. But on those days when you are swamped, we try to say, I just need to squeeze just this one little bit in before I go home. I've done that a lot, and then it's 6:30, 7 o'clock, and that time just grows. And as Juanita was talking earlier, it's important that we begin to exercise our work-life balance and be better at that. I know that that is not one of my greatest things that I do with handling that work-life balance. I'll continue to try to work until I get it done. So when you're doing, when you have your task, as you can see, the cartoon characters here says, how efficiently do you use your time? And so I kind of think this is funny because they are having coffee together, and at the end it says, you seem to be really busy. So when we're wanting to grab hold of some extra time, we need to really begin to think about what are some of those activities that we can eliminate that are wasting, they're time wasting activities. And by eliminating those time wasting activities, that would allow you more time to complete your priority. Some of those time wasting activities would be surfing the net, people stopping by and just having a conversation with you, spending too long when you go out to get a cup of coffee. So just how do you eliminate some of those time wasting activities? But we have to really think about them and be intentional with knowing that we're doing them, that they're happening. Juanita just put up this slide, just keep yourself organized. It allows you to take a look at yourself. You can take a look at some of those questions and kind of score yourself real fast. It helps you understand how much of my time am I really wasting, if any at all. So I'll let you get a chance to take a look at that and score yourself, and then we'll move on for that. And the total At the bottom it says 1 means it doesn't describe my use of time. 2 describes my use of time to a small extent. To a moderate extent is 3, and my use of time very well is number 4. So question 1 says, I seldom spend unnecessary time using technology, browsing the web, and so on. So score yourself there. I rarely have to rush to get things done on time. When something I'm working on is finished, I go on to other things. So score yourself and then share with us in chat what some of your scores were there. So we want to make sure that you take a look, and we have 23 to 28. You use your time efficiently if that was your score. 18 to 22, you generally use your time efficiently but could improve. And if you scored 12 to 17, you could make better use of your time. And 7 to 11, your time wasters might be making it hard. I know that Melanie just put in the chat that she scored 23. So she uses her time efficiently. And with the things that she does and all of the different activities that she participates in, she definitely would have to be a great scheduler of her time. What we're looking at now with the gentleman that's golfing, he's talking about some common time wasters, just to give us an opportunity to take a look at them. And guess what the top common time waster is procrastination. How many of us have procrastination as our common time waster? I always tell one of my sons that's like, you're the best procrastinator that I know. You know, he likes to wait till the last minute, and then he's working to get things done, to study or to get that project done. Time wasters could be multitasking, because we cannot do more than one task at a time. We really cannot multitask. So it is if we're trying to multitask, we're more than likely we're pushing paper around. We're wasting time. If you do things more than once, sometimes we will go back and we're such a perfectionist, we'll go back and we'll redo something and trying to get it better when it was great when you completed it, but we want to make sure that we hit every tip. We'll reread it. We'll start changing things because we started rereading it. So now we're doing unnecessary work. And then those distractions, that striving for perfection, as Marcia said, that can also be a distraction, because again, it's taking you right back around to have you redo something that you didn't need to do anymore. Efficient use of technology. I think a lot of people are still growing in technology, and some of us have a long way to go. But then there's some people that are so techie savvy until they use technology to help them stay on top of everything. So it's important that we take a look at our time wasters, because knowing what those time wasters are help us to make better use of our time. They help us to make better strategies that will make us more aware of when we're wasting that time, so we can not have to say, can we put more hours in the day? So to make better use of your time, some of the things that you want to do is stop procrastinating, for one, and then not trying to multitask. Do one activity at a time, and make sure you have a time limit set on the time that you're going to be spending on those activities. Do things only once, and avoid doing unnecessary work. So don't keep going back and rereading something. If you know you did it great and you gave it your all in all, close that book and go on to that next task. Reduce distractions. And sometimes we have to come up with a plan and put something on our door, and then say, I'm busy right now. I can't, for the next 15 minutes, I'm on a call, or please shoot me email, let's schedule a time. Sometimes you have to do what it takes in order to cut down some of the distractions. I saw one comment come through and said it's hard to just do something once. That's true, because by habit, we want to make sure that we go back and check it to make sure the work that we did is correct. So we're not saying, don't follow up and make sure what we did is correct, but don't go back 3 and 4 times and can start redoing all that work that you have accomplished, but always take a check of what you're doing. Also, you can create a time audit. Like there's one time audit you can do to find your time wasters, and every 15 minutes you can audit and say what you are, you know, to look and see what you're doing all throughout that day every 15 minutes. And that will learn, you will learn what time wasters you have. As someone said in the chat, which I was just getting ready to say, is we have to also learn how to say no. But then we have to be respectful with that no. And with that no, sometimes needs to become an explanation of why. So the individuals that we're saying we can't do it, understand the why we can't do it. And if there's a solution of how I can help, then that's an opportunity for us to be able to negotiate. I see that Juanita is popping up that we're out of time. So I do want to say that I hope that you have gotten some things that you can do. You can be intentional with planning your schedule. I was going to say with the to-do list, please go back and review them. It is important that we review the list, so those things that we are checking off, we can remove them from the list. Sometimes we have to switch things around on our list. We might find out the time limits have changed, or what it's going to take for us to accomplish that task. So that's why scheduling time and how much time it's going to take to do that action item is important, because you're able to see whether it's going to take 1 day, 1 hour, 2 days, or 3. And that best guesstimate that you're doing on your agenda or calendar for the day can be at the first run around a good picture of what your day is going to be like. So hopefully that we will all continue to be better at our to-do list and planning everything, and organizing ourselves, organizing our desk, and find that one tip, find that one thing that you want to improve on, and don't try to do it all at once, but to find the one thing that you want to do better when it comes to your time management. Perfect that or work on that, and then start something else. Thank you for joining us.
So are you ready? Are you all ready to get better organized and to really take some of the tips we prepared for you? I hope that it will help you in a lot of ways. Just a quick recap, some of the highlights that's very important. I think that you need to set your goals, make sure that they're measurable. Think about what's important and what's not important. Think about where you need to be in terms of planning what's important to you, what's urgent as opposed to what's important. Think about if you're being Miss or Mrs. Nice Guy, what that means to you, and schedule everything. Make your to-do list work for you if you have to have it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Sharon, for the opportunity to share. Thank you, Marsha, for always hosting us so well. We hope that you've enjoyed the session as much as we have preparing it for you. It's 2 o'clock.
It is. Thank you so much, Juanita. Thank you, Ruth. You all certainly have made me rethink my to-do list. I was like, I can't get rid of my to-do list, but I can certainly rethink and retool how I use it. So that was my takeaway for today. Before we go, Ms. Sharon, would you like to say anything about the Career and Professional Employees Commission?
I'm going to give you the summary part. That I would like to say thank you to everyone who did show up today, and thank you, Ruth and Juanita. I was kind of doing some of the things you were doing, but you kind of reinforced me to make sure I do a little bit more of it. And we are the Career and Professional Employees Commission. We are really actively trying to be out there, trying to engage and keep everybody active. And like I want to say, we do have some awards that we do give out. We have our Exemplary Practice Award, which the due date for that is August 3rd, and our Employee of the Year and our Education Scholarship. Those two are due on August 24th. There was an email that went out, so if you haven't received the email, I'm going to post my email. You can contact me and let me know that you haven't gotten it, and I'll make sure that you get a copy of it. I just want to say thank you. This was one of our great one. Miss Angela was good. This was good too. So I mean, I took down about 4 pages of notes.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is really, 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 really good. Thank
Anything
you,
that-
everyone.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank
Anything
you.
that can help us be more efficient, make better use of our time because we're all so busy. And especially right now, I don't know about you all. We were saying earlier before we opened up the call that or the Zoom that we just feel like we're so busy. We're just juggling so much, and I think our anxiety is also a little bit higher. Just when you think about COVID and all of the uncertainties. So controlling what we can control is invaluable, and our time, our to-do list, and efficiency in getting things done. I think that just goes a long way for all of us. So again, an important topic, some tangible tools I think we can all use to help us get better and feel a little bit more in control.
Yeah.
You all, we will be doing this again on, what's today? Today is Tuesday, so Thursday. And we hope that you will join us for another AFC webinar. Have a great afternoon. Please stay safe, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Anita.